Tonight, free after 2 decades behind bars. The mother jailed for killing her 4 children and branded our worst female serial killer. A family's long fight for justice for the father gunned down in a street. A self-confessed Republican named as Victoria's new governor. The push for safe injecting buses on our streets. Hollywood heavyweight Eric Bana tells why he signed up for the big freeze. And later, Victorians selling up as they hit the home loan mortgage cliff.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. The mother jailed for killing her 4 children and branded Australia's worst female serial killer is free tonight after 20 years behind bars. Kathleen Folbig was released after a landmark inquiry found new genetic evidence raised reasonable doubt that she was guilty.
20 years after being labelled Australia's worst female serial killer, Kathleen Folbig is tasting freedom.
Oh my God, my stinky shoes are in your face.
This is Kath me here, cup of tea, in her slippers with chili.
With a spoon!
With a spoon! So haven't you had a spoon for ages?
No, a metal one.
Really?
Metal for 20 years.
Oh my God, no metal spoon for 20 years.
20 years.
That's amazing.
By the time the world found out, she'd been released.
Ms Folbig has now been pardoned.
Folbig was 20 years through a 25-year jail sentence. She's always maintained her innocence.
This morning at 9:30 I met with the Governor. I recommended that the Governor should exercise the royal prerogative of mercy and grant Ms Folbig an unconditional pardon. The Governor agreed.
Over a decade, babies Caleb, Patrick, Sarah and Laura all died before they reached their 2nd birthday.
Do you know what sort of person would kill 4 children?
I have no comprehension.
In 2003, she was convicted of murdering 3 of her children and the manslaughter of Caleb. But in 2021, a scientific breakthrough uncovered evidence 2 of the children had a gene mutation that can lead to sudden death in infants. That's enough to raise reasonable doubt.
Where circumstances arise like these ones, justice can be ultimately done, even if it takes a long time.
Australian scientific experts played a major role. 90, including Nobel laureate Professor Peter Doherty, signed a petition calling for the unconditional pardon. The petition stated Ms Folbig's convictions were based on the prosecution's theory that she smothered all 4 children, yet there is no medical evidence to indicate smothering.
There are natural causes of death to explain the death of each one of her 4 children.
New South Wales Attorney General spoke with the children's father, Craig Folbig, before the announcement.
I'm thinking of him today as well. It will be a tough day for him.
The 55-year-old has been pardoned and released, but her convictions haven't been quashed. Only a court can do that. The case is drawing comparisons with Lindy Chamberlain. She was pardoned in 1987. Kathleen Folbig is now with friends near Coffs Harbour. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
A gunman has been found guilty of killing a young father after he opened fire on a boxing crowd. Ben Tungai's family says the verdict finally brings justice after years of heartache and a month-long trial.
A grieving family's call for justice answered after 4 long years.
We're so overwhelmed with the result today. We miss our son.
A jury found Abdullah El Nasha murdered father Benjamin Tungai outside a Melbourne Pavilion boxing event.
He was just such a good father, and Alyssa won't be able to grow up with that, and he's already missed so many milestones, her first day at school.
El Nasha fired multiple bullets into the crowd in March 2019 after tensions broke out with another group. The 33-year-old forklift driver was fatally shot in the chest. He fled to Sydney, where police found him hiding at an apartment building. The 32-year-old was injured jumping from a balcony. Today, his co-accused, Osama Alouche, was acquitted of murder.
Got nothing to say. All I've got to say is my brother and my co-accused was wrongfully accused, Abdullah El Nasha, on his charges,
The victims' family members held back tears as the jury delivered its verdict. Outside, they made a point of thanking the court for bringing them closure.
We would like to thank the prosecution team for all their hard work, for all their hours away from their families.
El Nasher will be sentenced at a future hearing. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
2 men have been critically injured in a serious collision between a car and a truck west of Melbourne. The emergency unfolded in Burrumbeet around 6:40 this morning. 4 people were injured in the crash, including 2 who needed to be cut from their vehicle. A Republican has been named as Victoria's 30th Governor. Monash University Vice-Chancellor Professor Margaret Gardiner will be sworn in August.
Professor Margaret Gardiner has built an esteemed career behind the lectern. She's set to deliver the most important speeches of her working life as our 30th Governor.
I'm looking forward to speaking with Victoria and on behalf of Victoria.
But the new representative of King Charles III comes with a twist.
I'm a Republican, personally.
The 69-year-old has led 2 of our biggest universities. She's currently the President and Vice-Chancellor of Monash University and was in charge of RMIT for 9 years. Her academic credentials seen as a key asset to being Victoria's head of state.
I want to draw attention to and draw from that status as the education state.
The Governor-designate comes to the position with strong political ties. Her husband, Professor Glyn Davis, is the Secretary to the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet.
This is a modern world. Often, both partners in a partnership work, have different and varied roles, and every governor and their partner make the role their own.
Professor Gardiner was first approached by the Premier about becoming Governor a month ago. The King gave his approval last week. She replaces Linda Desso, who's been in the role for the past 8 years.
Professor Gardiner is no stranger to Government House. She accepted an Order of Australia here in 2007, and despite the grand surrounds of her new home, is vowing to be accessible to all Victorians.
There's one issue sure to be even more controversial than her Republican status, her choice of football team.
Collingwood. It's the Pies.
Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
To breaking news now, and a Jetstar pilot has been stood down after a drug shock at Melbourne Airport. Sarah Jane Bell has the details, and Sarah Jane, the airline says drugs were detected on the pilot's luggage.
Mitch, the Jetstar first officer has been stood down and an urgent inquiry is underway after traces of illicit drugs were detected on his luggage as he arrived here in Melbourne on a flight from Bali on May 23. The budget airline has just released a statement. We have zero tolerance towards pilots operating under the influence of alcohol or other drugs and always undertake testing in accordance with aviation regulations. Australian federal police officers were called to investigate the drug possession allegations, but say they found no criminal offences and now consider the matter closed. Mitch?
Sarah Jane Bell at Tullamarine, thank you. Mobile supervised injecting buses could be headed for Melbourne streets. Beth and Yeoman has the details, and Beth, they'd be deployed in the CBD.
Mitch, the drug buses are one of the options being considered as the government wrestles with the issue of a second supervised injecting room in the CBD. They're already operating in cities across the world. It's the latest in a series of proposals in this saga, which has been running now for 3 years without answers.
They're used in cities across Europe and could soon be rolled out in Melbourne.
As we have here different needles.
Mobile supervised injecting rooms.
What we do know is those services are quite small and they're probably only going to be offering a few booths at once.
The buses are one of the key recommendations made by former top cop Ken Lay, who was tasked with investigating the viability of a second supervised drug facility in the CBD. But health experts and advocates say it's not a long-term solution.
It doesn't have the capacity. It would never have the capacity, and it doesn't provide the services.
I think there's already a lot of mobile supports in the city.
they're not delivering like what the people need, and they're not preventing the overdoses.
The government bought a site on Flinders Street back in 2021 for more than $40 million, proposed as a second injecting room modelled on the controversial Richmond facility. It's caused fierce debate among traders.
There will be so many complaints about everyone in this street because it's one of the most important in the CBD.
Around here, it's scary because it's a lot of tourists, it's a lot of people, and that's why most of the traders are not happy about it.
Last week, the Premier confirmed his government has received Ken Lay's report, but as of today, he still hasn't read it. He's promised he will provide a response at some stage, but declined to say when.
Clearly, we have an injecting drug use problem in the city, and clearly we have people who are losing their lives.
Beth Yeoman, 7 News.
A teenage boy has been charged with murder, accused of killing a young father at a South Yarra apartment complex. Adam Bockhot was visiting his girlfriend when he was stabbed in the stomach on Saturday night. The 17-year-old was due to face the Children's Court today. Labor MPs have been forced to defend their handling of the Brittany Higgins rape allegations. Albanese Government Minister Tanya Plibersek was on the defensive as Bruce Lerroman took aim at the Morrison government, claiming it had been out to get him.
After 4 years of silence, Bruce Lerroman answers that question.
Did you rape Brittany Higgins?
No, I didn't.
The charges against him now dropped.
If we are to believe you, you have been totally framed.
It would appear that way.
7 Spotlight airing Vision questioning Miss Higgins' claims that Mr Lerroman plied her with alcohol and of their late-night arrival at Parliament House.
The video of me going through that footage, I had to take off my high heels or something, and I was stumbling all over the place. Like, I wasn't capable of really even walking through.
Mr Lerroman maintains nothing happened in that office.
I thought I was being a gentleman.
Ms Higgins alleged that she woke naked on a lounge, Mr Lerroman raping her, claims he says she made up to save her job.
And then she's come into contact with media elites that have sort of latched onto this to weaponise it.
Including journalist Lisa Wilkinson, now accused of coaching Ms Higgins at a pre-interview lunch with Channel 10's The Project.
It's about fear, it's about intimidation, it's sexist. We must get that point across, because that whole thing of what an incredibly safe place it is to rape someone, I mean, that looks like intent.
And this.
Do you have friendly MPs you know that could fire questions in question time?
We could find. Oh, certainly Albo.
Yeah.
Tanya Plibersek. Definitely.
Ms Plibersek says she contacted Ms Higgins to check on her welfare.
Nobody tells me what to ask in question time.
Did she ask you to ask questions in Parliament about this topic?
I don't recall anything like that.
Tanya Plibersek asked 12 questions. Anthony Albanese today denied Ms Wilkinson influenced any of his 18. Lisa Wilkinson won a Logie for her interview, the controversial acceptance speech causing the trial to be delayed.
And it would be the final irony, if you like, if in fact the Logie was revoked from Lisa and the show.
Asked if it stood by Miss Wilkinson, 10 today offered no comment. News Corp journalist Samantha Maiden, whom Miss Higgins calls a friend, won a gold Walkley for the original story. Mr Lerroman sued her for defamation. News Corp settled last week. No response yet from Brittany Higgins, although Bruce Lerroman has had more to say about the parliamentary apology former Prime Minister Scott Morrison gave Miss Higgins.
That was a disgrace.
His view now of the man whose government he served.
The sooner Mr Morrison is out of Parliament, the better for our country.
Mark Riley, 7 News.
Prince Harry is back in London tonight, preparing to take the witness stand as he sues British tabloids. Sally Geit is outside the High Court. And Sally, how long has it been since a member of the royal family gave evidence in court?
Well, Peter, the press here in Britain are calling this the royal court case of the century, and Harry will be the first senior member of the monarchy in 130 years to give evidence. We are awaiting his arrival outside the High Court, and when he does arrive here, he's taking on the Mirror Group newspapers, accused of illegally obtaining stories about him, using historical phone hacking or private investigators to snoop on him and invade his privacy. It's one of a number of claims he's bringing against various tabloids, and he's not not alone. 100 other high-profile people are also making similar legal challenges. And once Harry is in the witness box, this won't be like the controlled interviews he's used to giving. He will be facing open, public and tough questioning, and no doubt his notoriously private family will be watching closely as he sues for damages. But this isn't about the money for the Duke. Rather, he says changing the media landscape is his life's work. Peter?
Sally Geit in London, thank you. Victoria's frontline workers are answering a call to arms for urgent blood donations. 2,000 people have been cancelling their lifeblood appointments every week because of cold or flu symptoms.
The Emergency Services Blood Challenge is absolutely critical. Emergency services respond to a whole range of car accidents and emergency events, and there are patients that need this critical supply of blood product.
Blood types O and A are needed most. Eric Bana is joining Neil Danaher's crusade as the latest big name signing up to take the plunge. The Hollywood A-lister will be the star attraction at next Monday's King's Birthday Big Freeze at the G.
The beanie was a dead giveaway. A touch of Hollywood had just signed up for the Big Freeze.
Eric Bana! Are you sure you're ready for this?
Well, you tell me, Koshy. I mean, you've done it before.
Eric Bana named the 5th slider to take the plunge at the MCG next Monday, joining Mick Fanning, Taylor Harris, Abby Gelmy and Jason Dunstall.
I jumped at the opportunity. I've been super inspired by Neil's journey and all the work that the Danaher family have done on behalf of Fight MND.
The diehard Saints fan now needs to get in costume, something he knows plenty about.
That's $1 million question, Nat. There's a fair old stable to choose from.
How many players are there on Australian rules footy time? I hear you want to give me a bit of money.
I guess the only clue is that I've decided to go with something that I think would put a smile on Neil's face. My good mate Rui did such a great job with Freddie Mercury. The bar's raised so high.
Banner's slide into Big Freeze history will take place before the King's Birthday blockbuster between the Demons and Magpies. Nick Etchells, 7 News.
And two of the AFL's most powerful clubs have butted heads. Tim Watson, Jordan De Goey's bump is causing plenty of tension.
It is, Mitch. A war of words has erupted. Tom Brown has the details. And Tom, a social media post has sparked an apology.
Tim, West Coast's fired a social media shot with his brewing tension with Collingwood, posting De Goey's bump last night with a caption, "Straight to the tribunal," after last night's verdict. Now, the Eagles have taken this post down this afternoon and said the club wishes to apologise for referencing the pending AFL tribunal appearance of Collingwood's Jordan De Goey.
What are West Coast tweeting about Geordie De Goey again? It's none of their business. And Dom Sheed's saying, like, I've now just seen the vision, maybe we should have stood up for him. None of the players stood up because it wasn't seen anything outside of a football act.
All right. Tim, the AFL's official Instagram with over 1 million followers did a similar thing. The account quoted Kane Corns, who works for them, who said De Goey's bump was a cheap shot and every bit of 4 weeks. Now, Collingwood has at least informally raised that Instagram post with the league today, arguing in effect that it's inappropriate for the AFL's own site to prejudge tomorrow night's outcome, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Also coming up, the Blues go offside. Exclusive pictures of the players' special meeting. A Bomber midfielder's stunning confession as he deals with more injury concerns, and Mitchell Victorian is in the box seat for a shot at glory in the Test Championship. More on that shortly.
Thank you, Tim. See you then. A real estate agent has confessed to stealing almost $1 million from his clients to fund a life of luxury for his dying wife. The details are next. Also coming up, the campaign against equal pay, the staggering cost of running a car in Victoria, and later action on the airlines, an ombudsman for frustrated flyers. Talkback radio host Dee Dee Dunleavy has been dumped from 3AW. Dunleavy broke the news on social media, saying she was devastated. The 11-year radio stint had come to an end. Dunleavy walked away today, leaving immediately after it was revealed her contract would not be renewed at the end of the year.
She could have worked for a few more months, but she's decided that it's best to step away. I'll miss Dee Dee. It's sad what's happened.
The station is yet to announce her replacement. A real estate agent has confessed to stealing almost $1 million from clients to give his dying wife a happy life. He says he splurged on luxury hotels and fashion so she could enjoy her final moments.
Richard Hayden was a trusted Ballarat real estate agent and family man turned fraudster.
Have you got anything you'd like to say to all the victims who lost money through you?
Mr Hayden stole more than $700,000 from 37 innocent victims who used Hayden Real Estate's Ballarat branch to sell their homes. He pleaded guilty in the county court to transferring deposit money out of trust accounts into his own. His wife Lisa was dying of cancer at the time. He was trying to shield her from the true financial state of the company so as not to make her worry. He spent more than $300,000 on lifestyle expenses, entertainment, clothing, international travel, and luxury hotels in Paris, Thailand, New York, Honolulu and Connecticut. The judge accepted it was to alleviate his wife's suffering so they could enjoy their last few months together, while his victims, including pensioners, carers and retirees, were left in debt.
Many of them lost their life savings. Would you like to at least apologise?
Sky Developments, trading as Hayden Real Estate, had been in the family for generations, started by his grandfather almost 100 years ago.
The business was shut down during the investigation and has since gone into liquidation. The judge told the court Mr Hayden has already lost so much and he will take that into account when he sentences him next week.
An ad shared by Lisa Hayden in 2017, around the time of her husband's offending, one to raise eyebrows. Christy Cooper, 7 News.
An Australian woman is among the survivors of a deadly bus crash in Italy. At least one person was killed when the bus collided with 5 cars near Naples. Sinead Curry was one of 3 Australians on board.
We were all asleep. It hit something. It went airborne. Spun around a bunch of times. We were all being flung around like in a blender and landed down an embankment, I think on the other side of the road.
One of the Australians is reported to have suffered a broken collarbone. Australia's business groups have joined forces in what's being described as the biggest industry push against government since the mining tax. They want new workplace laws dropped, but unions say they're just running a scare campaign.
From big business,
there are issues here.
Small business,
no loyalty rewards, no experience rewards.
The mining industry,
it's like a noose around businesses and workers' necks.
From farmers,
unfair, unreasonable and actually unrealistic.
And construction bosses.
It will be a disaster. It will hurt mum and dad businesses.
A new multi-million-dollar ad campaign to stop the government's same job, same pay legislation.
Employers will have to pay workers with little knowledge or experience exactly the same as workers with a lot of knowledge and experience.
It doesn't mean that, according to the government and unions.
Just plain loopy. It's absurd.
I suppose, you know, when you've got nothing, you're going to go for the crazy and the bizarre.
The reforms are aimed at businesses that deliberately exploit labour hire workers, paying them at a lower rate than permanent staff.
They'd rather spend their money, it seems, on TV ads to try and pressure the government rather than actually paying their workers properly.
Government and unions say that it's only fair that all workers, including temporary staff, be paid based on their level of skill and experience.
Yes, you can source labour hire, but you just got to make sure that you're not ripping people off when you're doing it.
Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
Victorian drivers are being hit with another cost of living blow, with the average price of running a car soaring to more than $26,000 a year. The increase is being blamed on rising car loan repayments, up more than $1,400 annually. Cost of servicing and tyres and insurance premiums are also up. Sydney is the country's most expensive city for motorists. Melbourne comes in third. An AFL coach has opened up on a coward punch nightmare that changed his life. The exclusive interview is next on 7 News. Also ahead, the big change to help flood-proof Melbourne. German police under attack in a night of violence. And a wife's message from the heart on a MasterChef shock. Melbourne's flood response system is getting a major overhaul after the Melbourne disaster. Rochelle Brown has the latest, and Rochelle, the Bureau of Meteorology will now issue flood alerts.
Mitch, the move promises to make emergency alerts faster and more accurate, bringing our system in line with the rest of Australia. It comes after Melbourne Water was heavily criticised for their alerts during last year's flood emergency. Melbourne Water downgraded its forecast to moderate floods on October 13 last year. The next morning, residents woke to this.
We had no warning whatsoever. We had elderly people being dragged out of their homes, little kids screaming.
Craig Constable spoke with police and SES around 6 o'clock that morning. They told him to return home.
At that point, they were saying only up to number 9 Oakland Street was going to be impacted.
They were wrong. An hour later, the street was underwater. He had just 15 minutes to react.
Just had to let it all go.
We're 8k from the city, and they could not manage to warn well over 1,000 people that there was a major flood coming through. In every sense, they failed.
The Maribyrnong emergency has triggered change, with responsibility for flood warnings and forecasts to soon rest on the bomb's shoulders, in line with the rest of Australia. Around 50% of homes in Maribyrnong are still unoccupied. Majority of residents are waiting for answers from insurance companies before they can rebuild. That night, the river peaked higher than authorities predicted. Melbourne Water upgraded the warning to major flooding, but only after most residents had gone to bed.
The flooding that they were adequate. A Watch and Act was issued on the 11th. It was the best information available at the time.
The findings of an independent review are expected to be released in November. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
The widow of MasterChef star Jock Zonfrillo has thanked well-wishers for their support following his shock death. The TV star's body was found in a Carlton hotel room last month.
I really wish that he knew how loved he was and he knew the impact that he had on so many people.
Lauren Fried says she's overwhelmed by messages from across the world. Violence has erupted on the streets of Germany over the 5-year jail sentence for a woman convicted of vigilante attacks on alleged neo-Nazis. 50 police officers and several protesters were injured in the riots. Around 30 far-left extremists have been arrested, with further demonstrations expected. Adelaide Crows coach Matthew Nicks has revealed he was the victim of an unprovoked bashing that changed his life. Now he's on an anti-violence mission to stamp out senseless attacks.
A respected leader, a pillar of strength. But for the first time, Crows coach Matthew Nicks has dropped his guard.
I was knocked out, I was hit. A good 12 months, maybe 2 years, where I wasn't able to walk down the street and past people. I would take a wide berth, and so that changed my life substantially.
It was 1994. Nicks was just 18 years old. He was enjoying a night out with mates on Hindley Street when he was suddenly struck in the face with brutal force. It was a senseless copycat rampage inspired by the confronting 90s film Romper Stomper.
The first thing you remember is coming to with friends around you and blood and nose spread all over my face and not really sure what had happened. I was in quite a mess.
What a pass! Nicks, go for goal! Look at this! Look at this!
Despite finding the courage to play AFL just a couple of years after the attack, Nicks does know, however, how lucky he is to have survived that night, and wants his terrifying ordeal to be a lesson to others.
Some of the violence we see, it's incredible, it's unacceptable, and we're going to do what we can to bring awareness to it and hopefully make a change.
Matthew Nicks sharing his story tonight is absolutely courageous, and it shows how the impacts of violence are forever lasting and how important our work is to prevent violence in the community.
Rosanna Mangiarelli, 7 News.
Well done, Matthew. American rockers, the Foo Fighters, are coming back to Australia, announcing their first stadium tour since the death of longtime drummer Taylor Hawkins. They'll touch down in Perth for their first show in November before heading to Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney and then Brisbane. Tickets go on sale next week. There's a push to help frustrated flyers. Next, an airline ombudsman for customers left up in the air. Also coming up, an ambulance station crash in Geelong leads to a double arrest. Handing over the Sunrise baton from Koshy to Shervo. And after sport, expert help to avoid the mortgage cliff on the eve of the RBA's big rate call. An out-of-control car has crashed into the front of an ambulance station in Geelong. The driver and his female passenger were arrested. Police say they will be interviewed about drug-related offences. No one was injured, but the ambulance station sustained damage to its roller door and front wall. Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, a lot of green on the board to start the week.
Yes, Peter, today was the best day in 2 months for Aussie shares, despite fears the Reserve Bank will hike rates again tomorrow. Iron ore stocks have had a patchy run in recent months, but today they finished top of the leaderboard. The Aussie dollar is treading water. It's just shy of 66 US cents, while oil prices are only a little higher. That's despite Saudi Arabia cutting output again. And more motor vehicles sold last month than during any May on record, total sales topping 105,000. Sales of battery electric and hybrid vehicles continue to grow, making up more than 15% of total sales for the month. Peter.
Thanks, Gemma. Australia's major airlines have been slammed by the consumer watchdog for high airfares and poor service. Abandoned customers are now calling for an independent complaints department so ripped-off flyers aren't left in limbo.
Deborah Robinson's experience with Qantas has been far from a holiday.
It took 2 years to get a credit note from them, and now we've just tried in vain to be able to use our credit.
Dozens of unresolved phone calls and emails later, Ms Robinson says she's still thousands of dollars out of pocket.
But I even went out to the airport in the hope of speaking to a representative.
The consumer watchdog is now calling for a new system to resolve disputes.
We are also strongly recommending the introduction of a truly independent and external Ombud scheme that will have the ability to make binding decisions.
They have to be held accountable.
What should be happening is giving the power to the customer.
In a report released today, the ACCC found the current independent body, the Airline Customer Advocate, is ineffective. In its latest report, fewer than half of complaints were resolved.
The customer complaints related to cancellation, to delays.
In April, just over 70% of domestic flights arrived on time. Almost 4% of flights were cancelled.
There is ineffective competition, resulting in higher prices.
The report found 94% of passengers flew with the two major airlines in April. Increased competition with Rex and Bonza is likely to improve customer service, but it could take some time.
If they change the way slots are allocated, so that there's more capacity and more competition in the market, airfares will come down.
Lift your game.
Sarah Jane Bell, 7 News.
Matt Shervington has been announced as David Koch's replacement as the co-host of Sunrise. The former Olympic sprinter will join Natalie Barr on the couch next Monday.
How are you feeling? Mixed emotions, just amazing, daunted, so excited, happy. Cannot tell you the honour and privilege this is, Koshy.
David Koch finishes up on Friday, but will still cover major finance stories on Sunrise. Good luck, Shervo. Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, there are new details on Alistair Clarkson's return to football.
Mitch, the master coach, wants to be back in the hot seat. We're live with the latest after the break. Also, the Blues go off-site to get their season back on track. Exclusive pictures next. Dylan Shields' stunning admission on his latest injury setback. The man charged with spoiling Buddy Franklin's milestone gives an insight into the matchup and why this doubles duo got kicked out of the French Open. Welcome back. North Melbourne has spent the day making plans for Alastair Clarkson's return to Arden Street. Tom Brown has the fresh details tonight. And Tom, Clarko stepped away almost 3 weeks ago.
Tim, sources today have told me that Alastair Clarkson's expected now to be hopefully back in a matter of a couple of weeks. Over the weekend, after Sue Orioli's explosive statement on Friday, there was talk that Clarkson may not return to senior coaching at all. But sources connected to North today have played that down. They're quietly optimistic now that Clarkson will return to senior coaching. And officially, I should emphasise there's no official time frame, but certainly the hope is it will take place in the next couple of weeks in terms of Clarkson's return. Moving to the Blues tonight, Tim, they had a recovery session in Albert Park this afternoon at the Victorian Institute of Sport. They had breakfast, Carlton, all together this morning. They've played 3 games in the best part of 12 days. So they have a big session on the track this week. In terms of a football review, no talk of that at the moment, and certainly no immediate focus on Michael Voss's future. The board will review the totality of the season at the end of the season. And just in terms of De Conning, a lot of talk now that Geelong is the big club into De Conning. He could join his brother down at Geelong, and his parents also live on the Surf Coast. A bit to play out there as well, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. St Kilda will be out to spoil Buddy Franklin's 350th game milestone on Thursday night. The Saints will head to Sydney, still smarting after being stung by the Hawks before the bye.
Back at work after the bye and that demoralising defeat to Hawthorn.
Couldn't stop thinking about the disappointing performance we put in Hawthorn, but it was a good mental refresh.
Ross Lyon more critic than cuddly after the 10-point loss.
The Hawks in a big upset, they kicked the last 5.
Deservedly so. We didn't put in the performance we wanted to, and we needed a good hit up. He's been sharp when he needs to be, he's been cuddly when he needs to be. He has a good balance.
The Saints' ledger of 7-4, a case of deja vu. Last year, a similar story with a strong start to the season and then a lacklustre finish.
You've got to prepare like it's a grand final every week, otherwise you're going to put in performances like we did against Hawthorn and look second rate.
The Saints are sitting at 5th on the ladder and keen to get back into the top 4, but they'll be facing a hungry Buddy Franklin playing game 350 this week.
Lucky enough to play on him a few times, and you're always a bit of awe of who you're standing on.
St Kilda faced an oiled-up Buddy in game 300, but defender Wilkie won't be getting too close.
I don't want to wipe it off because then it goes in my hands and I can't mark the ball. It's so slippery, but yeah, no, I won't be doing that tactic.
Laura Spurway, 7 News.
Bombers midfielder Dylan Shield concedes he's racing to be fit for the Kings' birthday Eve clash. Shield was sent for a scan on his injured foot and revealed he may have come back too soon.
In hindsight, would have liked to have really, settle it down and not try to get up for the Dreamtime game. Whether I play this week, I'm not too sure as of today, but. With the bye coming after this weekend, it might be smart to utilise that.
It's the same injury that's kept him on the sideline since round 10. Meanwhile, Bulldogs defender Ed Richards will be sidelined for a month with his hamstring strain. Pat Cummins says he's perfectly prepared for the Test Championship final and Ashes, despite fears Australia's bowlers are badly underdone. Josh Hazlewood is out of the squad to face India, while England lost a vital piece of their Bazball game plan.
The Oval in London, Test cricket's first home, India trained while the legends held court inside.
Some of the Australians have done nothing. Yeah. They haven't been playing any cricket at all.
Including Cummins, Stark, Bold and Lyon, the likely attack to face India on Wednesday night. Michael Neser making the Duke's ball sing in county cricket could be a wise choice.
I'd much prefer to be slightly underdone than overdone. That's from a bowler's point of view. And we've trained really hard. Everyone's rejuvenated, refreshed, and pretty keen.
Ruled out after training, Josh Hazlewood is a worry. It's a delicate balance. Ashes preparation while treating the World Test Championship final for what it is.
Players from both teams need to get out there and put on the best spectacle they possibly can, play really aggressive Test match cricket, make sure we get a result.
An unsung keystone of England's so-called Bazball, spinner Jack Leach, is out of the Ashes with back stress fractures, the only bowler to play every Test under coach Brendan McCullum. Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Miami has levelled the NBA Finals series with Denver at 1 game apiece. Nuggets superstar Nikola Jokic scored 41 points, but Jimmy Butler and co led the Heat to a 111-108 victory.
Inside and a foul. What a pass and finish.
Jamal Murray had a chance to level scores on the buzzer. Game 3 is Thursday morning. A doubles pair has been sensationally disqualified at the French Open. Japanese player Miyu Kato accidentally struck one of the ball girls in between points. A warning was initially issued before the tournament referee made the call. The big names advanced in the men's singles. Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic and Stefanos Tsitsipas all through to the quarters. Max Verstappen looks unstoppable in the Formula One Championship, cruising to his 5th win of the year at the Spanish Grand Prix.
It's max points for Max Verstappen at the Spanish Grand Prix. He wins yet again.
Mercedes Lewis Hamilton and George Russell completed the podium. Aussie Oscar Piastri finished 13th. Mitch. That's game, set and match. Mitch.
Match
and yes, he'll get a rude awakening next week when his alarm goes off.
He will indeed. Thank you, Tim. On the eve of the RBA's big call on interest rates, 800,000 Australians are teetering on the edge of a mortgage cliff. Expert help is next on 7 News. Also, Sonia Marinelli with the forecast. And Sonia, it was our warmest June day in 18 years.
Yeah, Mitch, it was unusually balmy and it could be just as warm tomorrow. All the details coming up after the break.
Unlocking the backyard in the housing squeeze. The push for an overhaul in the face of a granny flat boom. 7 News at 6.
Tonight, cracking the case, we speak to the scientist whose DNA discovery led to Kathleen Folbig's freedom. A panicked move intentionally designed to keep us paying more for petrol and totally clueless with our credit scores. Exclusive research shows how little we know. See you at 10:40.
Victorian homeowners are facing new pressure as ultra-low fixed loans expire. On the eve of the RBA's next big call, thousands are hitting the mortgage cliff, going to extremes to save their homes.
Kirsty Deinhoven is one of more than 800,000 Australian borrowers running into a mortgage cliff. Her interest rate tripled after her ultra-low rate expired.
It was a 2-year fixed rate of 1.89%, so very lucky that we got that when we did.
The mother of two's monthly repayments jumped $1,200 from $1,656 to $2,858.
It's quite a big jump.
That financial pain is being felt across the country.
Their rate going up from 1.9% to say 7.5% in some cases. So for them, that's potentially an increase of $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Mortgage brokers are being swamped with anxious borrowers trying to find better deals. Others are selling assets like holiday houses, caravans and boats.
Pulling kids out of private school and even just going, how are we actually going to pay for the groceries every week?
The essential message for absolutely everyone is to make a plan while you have time.
Borrowers rolling off low fixed rate loans are being urged to seek help early. They should repay extra to build a financial buffer, shop around and ask their lenders for a better interest rate.
Some are prepared, most aren't.
Kirsty Deinhoven refinanced and is saving $300 a month, now confident she can ride out the financial storm.
We're set up now to move forward.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Now here's Sonia Marinelli with the weather.
Thanks, Mitch. We spent this delightful Monday under high wispy cloud and a very warm wind, and that delivered the city its warmest June day since 2005. The temperature rising to 20.1 just after lunch. It's very unusual to get a 20 in June, the average just 14. Again, it was a humid northeasterly wind that boosted the temperature up to 20 in the east and 19 over in the west. But that cloud has thickened as showers spread into the northern and western suburbs, and there'll be a few more around tonight. But the city stays mild. We're holding in the double digits. Tonight's low 13 degrees. It is all streaming down over the northern border. Melbourne is protected by the ranges, so most of the showers and thicker clouds sitting on and north of the divide. There has been a few millimetres up there with the odd 10 mils in and around Mildura, but a nice, comfortable day thanks to that mild wind. Now, the driver is an upper level system, so we'll continue to see patchy rain tonight and into into tomorrow. But on Wednesday, we are expecting a heavier soaking as a slow-moving rain band tracks over the state and out to the east on Thursday. There could be some gusty storms thrown into the mix as well. Around the nation now, and that system is currently over Perth. We've got heavy rain and storms there tomorrow, but there is sunshine over Sydney and Brisbane. Here tomorrow, showers continue for much of the state, mostly falling on the northern slopes of the Divide, and it eases during the afternoon and evening, but there could be storms. Melbourne mostly misses out, but we may get a couple of showers in the northeastern suburbs. But just like today, a breezy warm wind boosts the temperature, lifting us back into the high teens. The city is reaching for 19 degrees tomorrow under a nice mix of sun and cloud. Looking ahead, and Wednesday's cloudy and 19 degrees with showers increasing from the afternoon, and then it is a wet night. But we'll see the rain easing during Thursday, reaching 18 degrees. There'll be a shower or two on Friday as colder winds kick in. So Friday, just 15, and it's 15 degrees over the weekend. But tomorrow, we're again heading for a balmy 19 degrees. Can we go 1 degree better like we did today and reach 20? Mitch, we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's a good run. Thank you, Sonia. And that's the way it is this Monday, the 5th of June. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7 Plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.